The sky was on fire. The battlefield smoldered with the smoke of crushed metal, fallen warriors, and burning ships. The ground trembled under distant artillery. Screams echoed, but they were fading now. Most of the living had already left. Only the broken remained behind. Among them, half buried beneath the twisted frame of a crashed dropship, lay Commander Valari of the Ilnari. Her left leg was gone, torn away in the blast that killed her squad. Her body was covered in black soot and violet blood. She could barely breathe. Her vision flickered, showing flashes of red alerts on her cracked helmet display. She tried to move, but her body screamed in pain. She didn't cry, she didn't beg. That was not the way of her kind. LNAR, warriors did not die with tears. They accepted death with silence, and so Valari closed her eyes, waiting for her last breath. She had once been feared across 7 systems. She had led fleets. But now she was just another casualty, one her people would never come back for. She had failed. And then a shadow fell across her broken body. At first, she thought it was the end. Maybe the enemy had come to finish her. But when she opened her eyes, the figure kneeling beside her wasn't wearing enemy armor. He wasn't even LNARI. It was a human. His suit was scratched, not military grade, and the red cross on his shoulder was glowing faintly. He dropped to one knee beside her, pulled off his helmet, and revealed a tired face. Brown eyes, sharp and calm. Sweat ran down his cheek. He didn't look afraid. "Hey," he said gently, like speaking to a wounded bird. "Still with me?" Valari growled weakly. "Leave me. I am finished." The human ignored her. He pulled out a scanner from his satchel and checked her vitals. His fingers moved quickly, efficiently. She felt a cold spray on her stump, something to slow the bleeding. "Nope," he said firmly. "You're not finished. Not today." She glared at him. "Why would a human help me?" He smiled faintly as he began attaching a pressure brace to her leg. "Because you're alive, that's reason enough." Valari tried to resist, tried to shove him away with what little strength she had. "I am Ilnari. I am proud. We do not take pity." "This isn't pity," he replied. "It's medicine and stubbornness." Despite her pain, something in his tone confused her. No mockery, no fear. Just kindness. Real, irritating. Kindness. She went limp. The medic worked in silence for a moment, then spoke again. "Name's Reed. Volunteer medic. I came back for the injured after evac. I thought I was done for the day until I saw your signal blinking under this pile of junk. You risked your life?" He chuckled. "Guess I've done dumber things. But letting someone die alone, that's not one of them." Valari stared at him, eyes heavy. She'd fought humans before. They were strange, emotional, reckless, and too soft. Yet here he was, alone, helping the enemy, your people. "Will court-martial you. Maybe," he said. "But you'll be alive to testify for me." He gently lifted her onto a hover sled, wrapping her in a thermal blanket. Her breathing slowed. The pain dulled, thanks to the human drugs in her system. For the first time, she felt warmth, not just from the heat packs, but from something else. Something she couldn't name. She looked at him one last time before losing consciousness. "Why?" she whispered. He paused, then said softly, "Because you're worth saving." When Valari woke again, the fires were gone. The stars above were calm, and her pain was muted. She was no longer on the battlefield. She smelled clean air, heard the beeping of machines, and felt soft fabric under her head. Her leg, it was gone. But something else was there. A temporary brace. A human design. She blinked at the ceiling of a human med tent, her mind spinning. Her people had left her behind. The humans had not. And the man who bent beside her when everyone else had walked away, he had changed something inside her. Something deep, something terrifying. She wasn't ready to admit it. But part of her didn't want to return to who she was. The first thing she noticed was the warmth, not the artificial kind, pumped through battlefield armor, but something real, gentle, soft. There was no pain screaming through her nerves. No alarms, no fire. Valari opened her eyes, a white ceiling. Stared back, broken by strips of dull lighting. Soft beeps echoed around her. She was lying on a low bed. Blankets tucked neatly over her chest. A soft hiss of oxygen flowed from a tube near her face. This wasn't Ilnari. This wasn't home, it was too peaceful. She tried to move and then she remembered the blast. Her leg. She threw off the blanket and looked down where her leg had once been. Now sat a strange device. Silver and black. Shaped like the lower half of her limb, but clearly not hers, sleek human tech. She stared at it, breathing hard. It wasn't real. It was unnatural. Shame surged through her chest. Just then, the curtain to her right slid open. He stepped in. The human, Reed. Medic. He held a tray in one hand and a steaming mug in the other. When he saw she was awake, he smiled. Not the smug kind she'd seen in other humans. This was simple. Honest. You're up, he said. You've been out for 2 days. Thought I'd have to sing to wake you. She blinked. You dare joke with me? He grinned wider. Yeah, I do. You're in my tent now. Valari growled softly. Her voice was weak. This is human space. Mobile field unit, he said. We set it up after the retreat. You're safe here. She looked away, ashamed. I should not be here. You should be dead, he said calmly, placing the tray beside her bed. But you're not. You're alive. You're healing. Valari stared at him. You made this. She motioned toward the leg. Custom prosthetic, he nodded. Temporary, until we grow. You something better. I don't want it. You also didn't want to bleed out in a crater, but here we are. She flinched at his honesty. It hit harder than any insult. I was left behind, she whispered. My people abandoned me. He didn't answer at first. Instead, he poured a clear liquid into a cup and handed it to her. She hesitated, then took it with a shaking hand. I've seen it before, he said softly. The proud ones. The ones who think being left behind means they're worthless. Isn't it true? She asked. No, he replied, sitting down on a stool beside her. It means the people you trusted didn't see what I did. That's on them, not you. Valari looked at her hand, the same hand that once gripped plasma blades, now barely able to hold a cup. You think I'm broken? He shook his head. I think you're learning to be something new. Silence hung between them. Then she asked, why do you care? Reed leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Because I've been where you are. Not physically, but close enough. I lost people. I lost part of myself in a battle I wasn't even supposed to be part of. I know what it feels like to wake up and not recognize who you are anymore. Valari's gaze softened. No Ilnari had ever spoken to her like this, not without ranks, not without judgment. She watched him for a moment, then asked, and what did you become? He smiled faintly. A medic. Someone who puts people back together, no matter what they look like. She lowered her eyes. My people would call this weakness. Maybe, he said. But then again, I don't think your people came back for you. That silence again, but this time it hurt less. Because it was true. Reed stood up and stretched. You need to eat. Walk, when you can. The leg will adjust. And when you're ready, we can make something better. He walked toward the tent flap. Then paused. You don't have to like us, but give us a chance. I think he might be surprised. Then he left. Valari sat there, alone. The machines buzzed softly. Outside, she could hear human voices laughing, moving, living. It was strange. She had always thought of humans as chaotic, wild, uncontrolled. But here, they were calm, structured. Kind. She looked down at her new leg. It moved slightly when she thought about moving it. Alien, artificial, but hers. And somehow, it made her feel less alone. Maybe this was weakness, or maybe it was the start of something stronger. Valari had led troops into firestorms. She had torn through enemy lines with a sword that hummed in her hands. She had stood on the bridges of warships and watched planets burn. But now, she couldn't take one step without falling. The tent was small, barely 10 steps from wall to wall. But to her, it felt endless. Her leg, no, not her leg. The thing attached to her stump moved awkwardly, too stiff, too light, too wrong. She gripped the support rail, her sharp claws digging into the padding. Sweat clung to her brow. Her balance was off. Her body hated the unfamiliar weight. She clenched her teeth, lifted her foot, and tried again. Step, wobble, crash. She hit the padded floor hard, her shoulder smacking the mat. The impact sent a jolt through her, waking up nerves she didn't want to feel. Behind her, a calm voice spoke. "Good, that's progress." She snarled. "Progress? I just fell." Reed knelt beside her, offering a hand. "Yeah, and last time, you didn't even lift your foot." Valari ignored his hand and tried to push herself up. Her arms trembled. She was strong once. But now, every movement felt like a reminder of what she'd lost. "Let me help," he said. "I don't need help." "You don't want help," he corrected. "There's a difference." She froze at that. He sat cross-legged beside her, not judging, just waiting. Valari looked down. Her prosthetic leg lay crooked, attached but awkward. The artificial limb hummed faintly, adjusting. It was a masterpiece by human standards, lightweight, flexible, reactive, but it wasn't hers. "This thing," she muttered, "feels like it belongs to someone else." Reed nodded. "It does, until you decide to make it yours." She eyed him. "Is that some human wisdom?" He smiled. "More like something my grandmother used to say. She lost her arm in a shuttle fire. Refused a replacement for years. Until one day, she started painting again with the new arm. That's when it became hers," Valari scoffed. "You humans are sentimental," he shrugged. "It keeps us alive." She looked at the support rails. At the goal, just 10 steps away, her instincts told her to lie down, rest, heal later. But something else burned inside her. Not rage, not pride. Something quieter, like the need to prove something. To herself. "I will walk," she said suddenly. Reed stood. "Then let's get you up." This time she let him help. His hand gripped. Hers not too tight, not too soft. Just enough to steady her as she rose, 1 foot forward. She wobbled. Her balance shifted. But she didn't fall. Another step. The synthetic leg adjusted, moving with a hiss and soft click. "Breathe," Reed said calmly. "Don't think about the mechanics. Think about the goal." Step. By the 5th, her muscles screamed. Sweat poured down her neck. But her eyes stayed forward. The 10-step journey felt like crossing a world, but she did it. When she reached the wall, she collapsed into the support beam, gasping. Reed handed her a towel. "What did I tell you?" Valari took it, her claws curling around the cloth. "I still hate this. You don't have to like it," he said. "You just have to keep doing it." Something flickered in her chest. Not gratitude. Not yet. But something close. Later, in the quiet of the tent, she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her leg. She tapped her claw against it. It responded, shifting slightly. She whispered to it like it was alive. "One day, you'll be mine." She didn't notice Reed outside the tent, listening. The next day, she walked 12 steps, then 15. She fell again but didn't curse, didn't snarl. She just got up and tried again. Each day brought a new failure, but smaller than the last. And each time she fell, Reed was there, silent when needed, steady when asked, never mocking. One evening, as the sun dipped over the horizon and the sky turned soft blue. She stood outside the tent without help. Her body trembled, but her feet were still. Other humans in the camp stared, but not in fear. Not in disgust. Some smiled, one clapped. Another offered a thumbs-up gesture, which confused her. Valari turned to Reed. "Why do they look at me like that?" "Because they see strength," he said, "not in your body, but in the fact you stood up when you could have stayed down." For the first time, she didn't argue. She looked at her reflection in the tent wall, a proud warrior with a machine leg, standing tall among humans. Maybe she hadn't lost everything. Maybe she was gaining something she never, The first message came at sunrise. A comms alert, short, cold. "Valari, you survived. Return to base for formal discharge. Leave the human zone immediately. Your time there is over." She stared at the blinking text for a long time, her hands frozen above the console. No warmth, no concern. Just an order. That was her people, the Elnari. Military, flawless, efficient, heartless. She deleted the message without replying. Outside, the human camp was waking up. Soldiers jogging, engineers repairing damaged drones, nurses carrying supplies, laughter from somewhere near the kitchens. It was peaceful. Vlar. I watched from the open flap of her tent, leaning on a support stick. She was walking better now. Still awkward, still painful, but every step was hers, and she no longer feared falling. Reed appeared beside her, holding 2 cups of something warm. She accepted one without a word. He sipped. "Bad message?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, "They want me to leave, not because they care, but because I embarrass them." He looked at her. "They said that?" "No, but they didn't have to." She walked a few slow steps to a bench, sat, and stared at her reflection in the tent's metallic wall. The leg, the scars, the rough edges. "To them, I'm not a warrior anymore," she said. "I'm a reminder that even the strongest can fall, and fall ugly." Reed sat beside her. "Is that how you see yourself?" She didn't answer. He leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "Want to know how I see you?" "No." "I'll tell you anyway," he said, smiling. Vlar. I sighed, but didn't stop him. "I see a soldier who could have died, but didn't. Who could have given up, but didn't. Who wakes up in pain and still walks. Who could have chosen hate, but instead sat beside a human and drank terrible coffee." She stared at her cup. "I see someone brave," he added. She shook her head. "My people don't value bravery like that. They only respect power, victory, control." "Then maybe," he said, "they don't understand what real strength is." Valari stood suddenly, angry but not at him. She pointed at her leg. "You think this is strength? Walking with a machine? Needing help? I was once a fleet commander. Ships obeyed my voice. Soldiers followed me into war. Now I trip over a step stool, and humans clap like I won a medal." Reed nodded. "Yeah, that's what makes it strength." She paused, confused. He continued. "It's easy to look powerful when everything is working, when you're winning. But strength is doing the hard thing after everything falls apart. That's what we admire." Valari sat again, quieter this time. "I once saved a human child during a battle," she said suddenly. 5 years ago. She was lost in a fire zone. I pulled her out, risked my life." Reed looked at her, surprised. "I've never heard that story." "You wouldn't have," she said bitterly. "My people demoted me for it. Said it was emotion over mission." He didn't speak. She added, "I used to believe them. I told myself it was weakness, that I should have left the child. But I remember her face. The way she looked at me when I picked her up. She stopped crying. Just held on to me like I was the only safe thing left in her world." Reed's voice was low. "Sounds like you were." Valari stared out at the horizon. I've been told my whole life to shut out softness. That emotion is a crack in the armor. But here, with you humans, you treat compassion like a weapon. You fight for each other." He nodded. "We don't always get it right, but we try." She looked at him. Really looked this time. "Why are you still here, Reed? You've done your duty. You saved me. You fixed me. Why not move on?" He shrugged. "Because you're still healing. And maybe I'm healing too." Her breath caught. She wasn't ready for that answer, or the warmth in his eyes. She looked away quickly. "I don't know if I can ever go back," she whispered. "Then don't," he said. "Go forward." For a long time she sat silently, letting the words settle. Then she said, almost to herself, "The Ilnari called me broken." Reed stood, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "And I call you brave." That night, she didn't dream of war. She dreamed of walking unaided through a city she'd never seen, with stars overhead and humans smiling around her. 4. The first time since the explosion, she didn't feel broken. She felt free. The ship arrived without warning, a silver dagger slicing through the sky, casting a long shadow over the human medical camp below. Valari stepped outside her tent, already knowing what it was. Her people. She could feel it in her bones. In the way the air tensed. In the way her breath caught without her permission. Reed was already outside, watching the descent. His expression was unreadable. The ship landed with no ceremony, no salute, just authority. Its engines hissed as the loading ramp extended, and from it stepped Commander Joran, tall, cold, sharp-eyed. 2 Ilnari guards followed, their weapons holstered but hands close. He looked at her prosthetic, then at her face. No greeting, Valari. "By order of the High Command, your recovery is concluded. You are to return immediately for evaluation and reassignment." His voice was hard, dry, not a single word of relief, not even "you survived." Valari's jaw clenched, her back straightened out of habit, but her hand rested near her prosthetic leg, as if it had something to say too. "I'm not ready to leave," she said calmly. "You don't have a choice," Joran snapped. "You are Ilnari military. You follow orders. You do not lounge among humans." Reed stood still, watching, silent. I didn't turn to him. She didn't need to. His presence gave her spine steel. "I was left for dead," she said, eyes locked on her commander. "My distress signal was marked as unrecoverable in less than 1 hour. My name was added to the death roll before the medics even finished." Sweeping the field, Joran's expression didn't change. The situation was chaotic. "But a human came back for me," she said louder. "When my own species abandoned me, a stranger crossed fire zones to save me. This creature?" One of the guards said with disgust, nodding at Reed. Reed raised a brow. "I've been called worse." Valari stepped between them. "He didn't treat me like scrap. He didn't strip my rank. He didn't see my injury as shame." "You've been corrupted," Joran said coldly. "Spending too much time among softbloods. They filled your head with weakness." Valari took a slow breath. Then she did something that would have been unthinkable only weeks ago. She removed her commander's insignia from her chest and held it out in her palm. "I'm not going back." Joran's eyes narrowed. "You're disobeying a direct order." "No," she said. "I'm choosing who I want to be." The wind blew softly through the camp. A few human soldiers nearby had stopped what they were doing, watching, quiet, respectful. Joran took a step forward, his voice a threat. "You're throwing away your rank, your home, your future." "My rank died on that battlefield," she said. "And I've already found something better than home." She turned finally toward Reed. He didn't smile. He didn't move. But the look in his eyes was enough. He believed in her. Joran looked between them, face tightening. "So this is it? You abandon your people?" For a crippled human base and a medic who plays hero? Valari's voice was sharp, clear. He is more of a warrior than anyone on your ship. Reed's eyes widened slightly. She didn't notice that the guards reached for their weapons. Valari's stance shifted. I wouldn't, she said. They froze. Something in her voice, ice and fire, made them hesitate. Joran raised his hand slowly. Enough. Stand down. He looked at her one last time. I hope the humans treat you well, Valari, he said. Because you'll never be welcome among your kind again. Then he turned. Without ceremony, without even looking back. They boarded their ship. As the ramp lifted, Valari exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. The ship roared into the sky, and she was free. Later that night, she sat beside the fire pit with Reed. The stars stretched overhead, quiet and unjudging. He handed her a mug. You sure about all this? She sipped. No, but I'd rather walk a painful path with meaning than return to a life that never saw me. He leaned back. You just walked away from your entire culture. She looked at her leg, gleaming in the firelight. Maybe it was never mine to begin with. He smiled softly. So what now? She met his eyes. Now, she said, I figure out who I am without them. Reed raised his cup. To the new you. Valari tapped hers gently against his. To walking forward. They thought she would fade into the background, a discarded warrior in a camp full of strangers, but Valari did not fade. She rose. Each morning she woke before the sun and trained alone at first. Her movements were stiff, her legs still unfamiliar. But she practiced with focus, fire, and the kind of silence that made others watch without speaking. Then one day, she wasn't alone. A human soldier, young, limping from a leg injury, asked if he could train beside her. She said nothing. She simply nodded. The next day, there were 3, then 7. By the end of the week, 15 humans stood in a ring while Valari demonstrated breathing stances passed down from generations of Ulnari warriors. She never called herself a teacher. She never raised her voice. But when she moved, they listened. And the moment she corrected someone's posture, they stood straighter, like her touch had transferred courage into their bones. News of her presence spread beyond the human medical zone. LNARI command heard the whispers. She trains humans now. She defends them in public. She shares Elnari knowledge with outsiders. Some called her a disgrace. Others began to ask, why did she stay? From orbit, the Ulnari sent down drones, quiet, high-altitude flyers with long lenses. They observed, recorded, analyzed, and what they saw shook them. The warrior they had written off as broken now stood at the center of unity. She helped carry wounded humans from crash sites. She oversaw repair drills. She even sat in on command briefings, not as a soldier, but as someone respected. When one of the human lieutenants made a careless joke about Ulnari pride, she didn't snap. She simply looked him in the eye and said, we were proud of the wrong things. No one joked after that. One afternoon, an explosion rocked the edge of the camp. A human transport had hit an old mine. Smoke billowed. Screams followed. Valari was the first to reach the scene. She didn't wait for orders. She dove into the wreckage, metal hissing against her artificial leg. Flames licked her skin. Shrapnel cut her arm. But she found the driver trapped under a twisted beam and lifted it off with a scream of pain and strength. Others rushed in, pulling survivors to safety. But it was Valari they followed, her voice, her presence. Later, when the wounded were being treated, the base commander approached her. You saved 6 people today, he said. Not all of them were human, she nodded. I didn't notice. And she hadn't. It no longer mattered. That night, the camp held a small ceremony, not official, not on the records, but they gathered around the fire, shared stories, passed around food. And when Valari stood, the circle went quiet. She looked at the crowd, humans of every shape, age, and voice. I once believed pain was a punishment, she said. That failure was shameful. That to be weak was to be unworthy. She tapped her metal leg gently. But I see now. Pain is proof we survived. And helping others, that's not weakness. That's how you build strength that doesn't break. There was silence, then applause. But far away, orbiting the sky above them, someone else was watching. Commander Joran. He stared at the live drone feed from his private terminal. Watched Villari speak to the humans like one of their own, a younger officer leaned in. Shall I prepare a strike? She's inspiring rebellion, undermining morale. Joran didn't answer. He studied her face, her movements, the fire in her voice. He saw something he didn't want to admit. He saw what real leadership looked like. Not yet, he said quietly. She's dangerous, but not because she betrayed us. The officer frowned. Then why? Joran's voice was low, grim. Because she made them believe in her. Down below, Villari stood near the edge of camp, looking up at the stars. Reed joined her, hands in his jacket. You gave a speech, he teased. Didn't think you were the type. I didn't plan to, she replied. But the words came. He looked at her. You know they're watching, right? Your people. Probably orbiting us right now. I hope they are, she said. Let them see what they gave up. He smiled. She didn't. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I don't think they'll let me go so easily. Reed didn't flinch. Then we'll stand with you. Villari turned to him. No, she said. I'll stand for you. The sky broke without warning. A thunderous boom cracked across the atmosphere, sending tremors through the earth. Sirens blared, drones scrambled, soldiers rushed from tents. All eyes turned upward. A sleek black Ilari warship descended unmarked. Aggressive and silent. This wasn't a visit. It was an execution. Villari stood at the edge of camp, staring at the beast in the sky, her hand clenched around the staff she used to train others. No banners. No messages. No diplomacy. She already knew who had sent it. Commander Joran was finished watching. Reed appeared beside her, breath tight. They're not here to talk. No, she said. They're here for me. You can run, he said. We'll cover you. She turned to him slowly. I'm not running anymore. The warship didn't land. It hovered just above the surface, its engines rumbling low like a growling predator. A single drop pod launched from beneath its hull and slammed into the earth in front of the camp gates. Dust exploded. Out stepped an Ulnari warrior, huge, armored and silent. His helmet split open, revealing a familiar face. Commander Joran Villari took a slow breath and stepped forward alone. Around her, human soldiers stood ready, but held their fire. They were watching her now, waiting. Joran spoke, his voice louder. Then the engines above, Villari. You were given a chance to return. You spat on it. Now you will answer for your betrayal. She didn't flinch. I didn't betray anyone. I just stopped following broken orders. He walked closer. You've spread your disease to the humans, made them believe weakness is virtue. That emotion is strength. She stepped forward too. And yet, in your eyes, I see fear. His brow twitched. You fear the idea, she continued, that a warrior doesn't need to be heartless. That strength isn't just in the body, but in choice. Joran's voice turned cold. This ends now. Behind him, more warriors stepped. From the ship's silent enforcers. Weapons charged. Villari's voice rang out, sharp and clear. I will not fight my people. Joran raised his weapon. Then you will die standing still. She lifted her arms not in defense, but in peace. I'd rather die as me than live as your prisoner. The silence that followed was suffocating. Reed moved. Villari, no. But before he could reach her, a blast fired. A bright blue beam shot from one of the enforcers straight toward her chest. But it didn't land. A blur moved faster than thought. Reed. He leapt in front of her, shielding her with his body. The beam struck his shoulder, spinning him to the ground. No! Valari screamed, catching him as he fell. He gritted his teeth, pain flashing across his face. Worth it. She looked down at him, her savior, her friend, her anchor. Then she looked up. Something in her changed. No more hesitation. She stood, and this time she didn't stand as an Ilnari. Not as a broken warrior, but as something new. Something whole. Valari stepped forward, toward the ship, toward the armed soldiers, unarmed herself. She called out loud enough for all to hear. I am Valari of the Ilnari, trained in war, forged in fire, once broken, now reborn. She pointed. Behind her to the camp, these humans showed me something my own kind never did. Honor without cruelty, strength without fear, love without control. The Ilnari warriors shifted, confused. Some lowered their weapons. If you think I've betrayed you, fine. Brand me traitor. But ask yourselves this. If we must destroy the ones who save others, what exactly are we fighting for? A heavy pause. One of the younger Ilnari soldiers, a female with a scar over her eye, stepped back, then dropped her weapon. One by one, others followed. Commander Joran's eyes burned with fury. He raised his weapon again, but this time, no. One followed him, not even his own guards. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, he turned and walked back toward the ship, alone. The warship lifted. No final words. No revenge. Only silence. Valari dropped to her knees beside Reed. His wound was bad, but not fatal. Am I dead? He murmured. She smiled through tears. Not yet. Damn, he whispered. I thought I'd finally impressed. You always did. He blinked at her. You said that out loud. Must be the blood loss. She laughed, a real laugh, full of light and warmth. 3 months later, a new medical unit was built at the edge of the neutral zone. Half human, half Ilnari. Staffed by both. Protected by both. Valari was its leader. She trained, healed, protected. Not with swords, but with truth. Her leg was metal. Her body scarred. But her heart finally was her own. And in the quiet moments, when the camp was still, she would walk to the edge of the trees, breathe in the strange human air, and remember the man who bent beside her when no one else did. He had saved her life, but more than that, he helped her become someone worth saving.